Katie to go through the proposal, or do you want?
Which I was thinking that might be helpful, and
Okay.
then we can ask, you can stop us whenever you would like, you can talk and we can get an understanding of what you are proposing.
So, okay, so I might like to make just an introductory comment then.
I think we both would do that.
For live now, Jimmy, if you want to start.
Oh, we are now live. Thank you. It is May 28th, and this is a conference committee on H.91, an act relating to the Vermont Homeless Emergency Assistance and Responsive Transition to Housing Program. And the original bill came to us from the House. It was creatively developed in the House, and so I'd like to turn it over to you, Breckwood, first to give your introduction, and I'll give a little bit of an introduction, and we can move ahead with the conference.
Okay, thank you very much, Chair Lyons, and thank you for hosting us in your committee room. And the first thing I wanted to say is I wanted to appreciate all of the input that folks sitting around this table, folks sitting around the outside of the table, folks listening in have all had during this process. It's been a lengthy process. We started this bill right away in the House, and then it's spent a considerable amount of time down here in the Senate. And so I just wanted to extend appreciation to people. And I wanted to particularly highlight that while, I believe there was testimony in this committee that the House, did not invite testimony from shelter providers. I just want to clarify for the record that is not the case. We took a great deal of written testimony from shelter providers and took that into serious consideration when we were drafting our bill. So because that has become a very vocal group, I just wanted to be clear about that with this opportunity to talk with you senators. So we overall appreciated the changes that the Senate made and accepted many of them. I'm not sure if Katie's going to highlight things that changed or didn't change or accepted, but if she doesn't, then I can. For the most part, major things like the implementation, the statewide implementation committee, we went with the Senate's version of regional advisory councils to the community action agencies. The other, major piece is around the housing opportunity program and when that be incorporated. And you'll see some language here that reverts back to the House's proposal to include that at the start, but also makes provisions for the shelter service providers that I think will help to address their concerns around how their allocations and appropriations would be impacted over this transition period. So I think those were sort of like the two major issues that I think, one that we accepted the Senate on and one that we're proposing back to you that would come back to the House position on that. And I just want to be clear that the reason we really feel that's important is because the approach really is an integrated approach to serving individuals who are homeless and their families, all the way from extreme weather shelters that would be short-term in nature through preventative services, which we hope to be able to focus a great deal more on the preventative side of things, all the way through to the formal shelter providers that provide an integral and necessary part of this service system. And so it needs to all happen at the same time from our perspective in order for our local regions to be able to employ all of the resources to address the needs in each of their regions. So I think you'll see that those are the two major things that popped up for us. There's language tweaks here and there, but Katie can go through those with us. And if there's something I want to particularly point out, I will do so. Or if you have a question for us in terms of what we are proposing, just let us know.
So thank you for that. And I look forward to going through the bill and seeing the suggestions that you've made. I will say that this is a really important proposal that you brought to us initially, and the work that you've done is really exceptional, greatly appreciated by our committee. We did listen to different folks and did make some changes, tried to make it a bill or a program that could be effectuated early. And the word we use in here with alacrity. So we do appreciate all the work you've done. We are concerned about POPs. We understand their concerns. And we also understand that there are some pretty unfortunate things happening at the federal level that reduce access to housing for folks who are homeless or near homelessness. So one of the key things for us is that we're moving away from the hotel motel problem that we currently have, and that we are moving toward an opportunity for temporary and then permanent shelter for folks that doesn't involve the complexity that we've seen in the past. Without this bill, you know, and I'll say this probably again, hopefully when we complete our work here, without this bill, we are destined to be under the cloud of the current program, which isn't something that any of us, I think, desire. So I don't want to talk any longer. I think we're working together on this and trying to get closure as quickly as we can. So Katie is going to, if you can, put it up on the screen for us and we can look at what the recommendations are. Welcome to see comments from the House vote.
Sounds good. Katie McLean, Office of Legislative Counsel. Good morning. It's morning for 6 more minutes. Okay. So this is draft 1.4. This is the House proposal for conference report. A few things to start off with. This will look familiar to the senators. The base of this document is the Senate version of the bill. Changes are highlighted, so you'll see that in the document. The biggest changes you'll see from your version of the draft substantively is moving that POP timeline up by a year. So the version that the House sent to you had the transition of POP programming and funding moving in fiscal year 27. You moved it to 28, and this version moves it back to 27. So that's one change. There's also a new section at the end, at the transition section, that allows some of the specific aspects of the arts to be implemented on an earlier timeline where there's agreement and where it's appropriate. So I'll bring you through that language when we get there.
I just wanted to say something about that. I think that we have all heard from the administration that if they could reach agreement with the parties, that there were elements of this that they would like to implement sooner. And so I think we tried to be a little more explicit about that language at the end. But saying that it would require obviously mutual agreement.
Right.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah, no, that's something that I think is important to say.
Okay, so our first section is our finding section. There is a new finding in subdivision 2 at the top of page 2. According to the Vermont Homeless Management Information System, as of March 2025, there were 4,971 individuals who were homeless in the state, 1,105 of whom were children. And that replaces the previous subdivision 2, that in 2023, according to the same annual homeless assessment report, 51 of every 10,000 Vermonters were experiencing homelessness. So that's a swap out.
I'm fine with that.
Okay. And it just in the findings, number 1 and 2, we're really citing from the same type of report. One was for 2024 and one was for 2023. We thought like, well, we have more up-to-date information. We should use that and ixnay the 2023. So that's what that is doing.
Okay, there's some renumbering here because the item that was 4 in the House and Senate versions has been removed. That was that of the 3,458 unhoused individuals in Vermont identified by the Vermont 2024 point plan count, 166 experienced unhoused homelessness. So that language has been struck. And then we have some a change here in subdivision 8. Since 2020, the Vermont Housing Conservation Board, instead of has constructed, has facilitated construction of 170 new single-family home ownership units and 269 new shelter units.
We're fine with that.
I'm pretty sure Gus would think that they,
Yeah.
that, that he was out there pounding nails, but I don't think he really was.
And then the finding in subdivision 9, and of the previous drafts, the House version, the Senate version, has been removed. That the 2024 Vermont Housing Needs Assessment notes that half of all Vermont renters are cost burdened and 1 in 4 pay more than 50%, etc. So that is a longer finding, and that one has been removed from this version. Our next section is the legislative intent section. And there is new language here in subdivision C. So the version of subsection C that came over from the Senate just had that first paragraph, and it wasn't broken into subdivision 1. However, because the Senate had broken this timeline up to fiscal year 27 and 28, this version more closely aligns with what the House did, meaning that the transfer from Housing Opportunity Grant Program to VHART would begin fiscal year 27. So that timeline has been rolled together in that paragraph. And then there's a second paragraph. It is the intent of the General Assembly that in fiscal years 27 and 28, emergency shelter services funded through HOP in fiscal year 25 be funded at a level equivalent to or greater than fiscal year 2025 expenditures.
So that's the paragraph that I was speaking to, Senator Lyons, that we can't obviously guarantee that because that's dependent upon future legislators' action in the budget. However, this is expressing our intent that shelter services during this transition period would be funded. And the reason it says 2025 is because we don't know what the 2026 allocations will be. So that's why it says equal to or greater than what they received in 2025. So this is the House's proposal to address some of the concerns that the shelter providers had about the transition and the feeling that they may lose resources. And that certainly was not our intent. And enables them during this transition to either continue to work on their relationships within the community, to reestablish, to reaffirm, to solidify the relationships within the local region. So without needing to be thinking about my budget is going to be impacted. So
Okay, well, yeah, I will look at this. I don't think it's not our intent to harm or destabilize.
Right.
I think, one of a sentence that we should probably consider as part of this is that there's no intent to destabilize the housing opportunity program, period. And so that's the meaning.
current providers.
Yeah,
The current providers.
current providers for that. So I think that might help a couple of directions. Okay, we'll look at the language you have there.
Okay.
So moving along, that brings us to section 3. And just to kind of remind us how this bill is structured, the HEARTH program is amended 2 times. So the first time it's amended is July 125. What is taking effect July 125 is the chapter is being created. There's a short title, there's a purpose section, there is a definition section, and then the creation of the Regional Advisory Council. So that all happens in fiscal year 25. And then in section 4, you'll see the rest of the chapter being put in place. So we have our short title with no changes. We do have a change in the purpose section, and that is to reintegrate HOP into the purpose, transitioning HOP funding and programming into VHARTH. The Senate version had pulled this out and amended it at a later date when HOP would be integrated. So this version has both general assistance, emergency housing, and HOP funding and programming transferring on the same date. Next, we have our definitions section. And there is a change in the definition of household to add the language and intend to stay. So just to read that first portion, household means an individual and any dependents for whom the individual is legally responsible for domiciled and intend to stay in Vermont, as evidenced by intent to dwell in Vermont, etc.
I know that's an important concept for the UCF.
That came from the,
Okay. And that brings us to the top of page 7, the regional advisory councils. So there is some restructuring here. One of the changes at the beginning of this paragraph is to specify that each regional advisory council is to be made up of individuals and organizations from the Community Action Agency's region. And then the Senate version had, we called it the shall group and the may group, and it was all compressed into one paragraph. And this version breaks it out into some subparagraphs. So each community action agency shall convene a regional advisory council composed of individuals and organizations in the community action agency's region. The membership of each regional advisory council shall reflect, to the extent possible, the growing diversity among Vermonters, including individuals who are Black, Indigenous, and persons of color, as well as with regards to socioeconomic status, geographic location, gender, sexual identity, and disability status. And then this first paragraph is our shall paragraph. Members of an advisory council shall include individuals with lived experience of homelessness. They have been on the Senate's May list. Local housing coalitions, same thing. Other organizations providing services in the region. Municipalities, again, that had been on the Senate's May list. The Agency of Human Services Field Services Director, and any other representative of the agency as needed. The Senate version had language about the department being on in the shall group, and also representatives of other departments of the agency. So that has been reorganized. And then subdivision 2 is the May group. Members of a regional advisory council may include community and state partners, housing providers, statewide homelessness organizations, providers of coordinated entry, continuums of care, faith-based organizations, and other individuals or organizations as needed. So there is some catch-all language that's added to the end of this May group.
so we wanted to make sure that it was clear that that the regional advisory councils are made up of individuals and organizations in that region, and that the voices of people with lived experience are on those councils, because that they were in the May group under the Senate version, and we felt strongly that they needed to be in the shall group in terms of the old adage that we all hear nothing about us without us. And so that was the major change that we made. And then we also felt it was unreasonable or unlikely to necessarily expect a representative from the department each and every time to be at all of the regional advisory councils. They may or may not be there. They can be there, but we really did feel like it was important for the field service director, being again at that local region, to participate as a member of that local council. So those are the two changes that we made here.
Okay, good. Thanks. We'll look at that.
Yeah. Okay. There's a new paragraph in this section, and this provides per diem compensation and reimbursement of expenses for members of the regional advisory council who are not participating in their professional capacity. So this allows for not more than compensation for not more than 4 meetings annually. These payments shall be made from monies distributed to the relevant community action agency by the department.
Was the not more than four meetings the addition here? Because I know we had.
This paragraph is the addition.
Yeah, there was no provisions for payment for people that previously.
I thought it came out of the agency funding, but.
No, it did. There was a sentence in the sentence version that said the regional advisory council shall have the legal and technical support of the department. But that's the only thing.
There was no per diem.
No,
Okay, I'm thinking of another bill thing.
not surprising.
Not surprising.
So
It's important to have something in here.
right, and it says not more than 4 because it says they have to meet at least quarterly.
Okay.
Effectively at least quarterly, that would mean they could meet more, right? Would that then be unpaid if they do choose to meet more? With the way this
With
language
this
is
language.
structured?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay,
So I'm moving on to section 4. Again, this is the July 1, 2026 effective date. So this is when the rest of the chapter for VHART is implemented, and this is when the program itself, not just the regional advisory councils, become up and running. So for changes, 2204 is the establishment of the program. 2205 is the language on authorization of the various partner organizations and the reauthorization review. And then
There's an update to the community action agency definition that happens,
yes, but that's not a change from
not from theirs, correct?
theirs,
Yes,
yeah.
sorry, yeah,
Yeah,
I see
same
what
with
you're doing.
yours.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
that's with yours.
but in subdivision V2, let's see, I'm on page 10, V2. There's lead-in language, the community action agency providing or causing to provide services in accordance with this chapter shall have. So this is the list of responsibilities of the community action agencies. And then there's this change, the capacity to perform or cause to be performed, the core services. There's an update there. That's the only thing in that section. 2206 is the VHART core services. A is our paragraph on the organization serving households that are experiencing domestic or sexual violence. B is our paragraph on the community action agencies. And then we start in subdivision 1 with the list of supportive services. So this first item in subdivision A, intake assessments and services for diversion from homelessness, which shall include regional intake shelters, unless the department and community action agencies agree otherwise.
So, so we think the idea for, regional intake shelters is, a good idea. And it's something that the department feels, fairly strongly about. The thing that we also thought, however, is two things actually. So these, legislation needs to be able to, last over time. So while this is a great idea right now, in the future, it might not be a great idea. Or there might be a reason for a less populous community action agency might not need to have one. So I think that, allowing for some flexibility that's agreed to between the department and the community action agencies, while still promoting the idea we thought was something worth considering.
Okay. We're still in this list of responsibilities of the community action agency. And under G, that's navigation services to navigation to other services and supports as identified in the household's housing plan, including, and then the item services related to disability and independent living advocacy was added. And then with regard to healthcare services and referral to healthcare assistance, such as treatment for mental health conditions and substance use disorder as provided by the designated and specialized service agencies and preferred providers respectively, or other providers.
They're not the only service providers, so.
yeah, you're right.
And just to be clear, advocacy isn't really an addition, it's a change. It was listed separately, it was the old H, and it's not like, it doesn't really need, it's
Doesn't
really sort
need
of
it.
part of the group.
This is fine.
Okay.
And then we move to 2207, use of hotel and motel rooms. So a few changes here in this intro paragraph. So first we have as the intent of the General Assembly to decrease reliance on hotel and motel rooms for emergency housing.
This is like the fourth time, I'm not sure, but I just want to be clear. We're being clear about that, I think, Jimmy. This is like, I think the fourth time up to page 14 that we say that, so.
I know, I think we all want to reiterate that, it's just like, it's time. It's time
Just
to
in
move
case
on.
we don't get it the first time, get a chance to read it 3 or 4 times.
The second sentence, annually as shelter capacity increases and the number of households experiencing homelessness decreases in each region of the state, the use of hotel and motel rooms for emergency housing in that region shall decrease.
So, we agreed with your language. We just felt like, particularly with, the housing vouchers being pulled back, with the status of things at the federal level, it needed to be balanced by not just the shelter capacity increasing, but, there had to be some, accommodation for what the numbers of households were that are homeless. So, and so we felt it was important to assert that.
Okay, sentence 3. Annually, as part of the department's budget presentation, the department shall set goals for increased housing capacity, including permanent supportive housing, permanent affordable housing, and shelter beds, some of which shall be population specific, in addition to proposed corresponding decreases in the use of hotel and motel rooms.
Okay, yeah, that's a good way to say it. Yeah.
I'm just wondering if I should say may, I'm thinking about that.
Is
that might change over time.
We'll look at that.
Yeah.
Let me write it down before I lose it.
This is the Senate version. That's all. See all these yellow markings. Those are all things that we accepted, Ginny. I just want, we're not going through all of those things.
Very familiar.
I'm just being clear about it.
Okay, that brings us to subsection D. I'm on page 15. If a hotel or motel is being utilized, a community action agency or entity under contract with a community action agency, there's a new subdivision 1, shall ensure relevant support services established pursuant to 2206B1. Those are the supportive services of this chapter are used in conjunction with emergency shelter.
Okay, so can you explain what you're doing here?
Yes. So, if you're going to use a hotel or motel, we're saying you can't just, say like the current system, here's your voucher and here's the hotel. We're saying if you're going to use a hotel, you have to provide supportive services that we have listed in the core services. So that again is, honestly trying to reassure the people who don't want to see the continued use in the way it has been used of the hotels and motels, that it comes with supportive services. So you use the hotels with supportive services.
I think it's been, you've just articulated what we've been saying all along, so it's very helpful.
Okay, so we have some renumbering of subdivisions.
Can I just ask a question of you, Katie? Which I now then looking at this. In that number 1, is it going to be confusing to say in conjunction with emergency shelter?
So the site in 2206B1 is specific to supportive services, which is different. I mean, 2206B3 is the emergency shelter. So I was trying to make a distinction between the two.
Okay.
Does it need to be a separate sentence?
I didn't know. I was in my mind. I am thinking about, no, but it is separate under 2207. I'm just wanting to make sure that it doesn't get confused, although it'd be required in other shelter services as well. Yeah. Like this was intended to be specific about motels and hotels.
Right.
We could just put the semicolon after chapter because the lead-in is if a hotel or motel is being used.
It's being utilized.
Okay. Okay. Subdivision 4, which had been subdivision 3, adding the phrase population specific placements. So may use population specific placements to the extent certain populations are not isolated from the wider community served through the program. And subdivision 5 is new. Shall not utilize hotels and motels outside the community action agency or entity's region unless approved by the department or in a written memorandum of understanding between the community action agencies.
I call this fondly the Rutland provision.
So now we know where the responsibility.
It's not only for Rutland though, because I've heard the same thing from Brattleboro and I've heard the same thing from other communities, but
Okay,
but I just,
well, it does two things. It helps the region, but it also helps the person who is looking for.
exactly.
placement.
And again, it's about communication.
Yeah.
And making sure that people are coordinating and collaborating with one another. So
It's a good garden.
yes, it is. It is.
I think that sounds fine.
Right. Next is 2208. This is the responsibilities of the department. This looks fairly similar to what it looked like when the Senate sent it over to the House, with the addition of this paragraph that was in the House version. And that is that the department has a responsibility to consult with the community action agencies and the statewide organizations serving households that are experienced or have experienced domestic and sexual violence, to develop appropriate measures and methods for accountability of the community action agencies and the statewide organizations' execution of duties under this chapter, including the provision of any previously agreed upon information to enable the department to evaluate the services provided through grant funds, the effect on households receiving services, and an accounting of expended grant funds.
So the reason why we wanted to add that back in was because the only place that accountability was really addressed was in a progress report back to us, which is only going to be in session law. And we felt the underlying statute should have reference to the accountability measures that we had suggested in our previous work.
Well, it does seem important too. So it has a network in.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And the other thing that I just wanted to highlight, because we've done this in a couple of places, in the first under A, the hard duties of the department, 2208A, after system development, the Senate ad proposing adequate funding. And I did want to highlight for you that we deleted that. And I will say that, I'll be honest, I am trying to look at this with the viewpoint of the administration. And I am realizing that all of this will be discussed every year during the budget process that we undertake with the administration. And we lay out in one of the reports that's due back the adequate funding. So I felt rather than putting it in this and it being kind of a red flag that we didn't really need to do that. So I just wanted to highlight that for you in case.
Fine, I don't like red flags either. That's fine to take some. And it's fine to put this new paragraph in. Thank you. Yeah. Okay,
Okay, so we have some renumbering, and then
what page are we on?
I'm sorry, we're on page 18.
18.
So we have some renumbering. This continues to be responsibilities of the department. And then subdivision 8 is the rulemaking provision. So this is adding language that authorizes rules or directs that rules be adopted, including rules that address reauthorization standards under subsection 2205A and subdivision 2205B3 of this chapter. So that is, this 2205 is the authorization, reauthorization section. 2205A refers to the statewide organization focused on serving households experiencing domestic and sexual violence. 2205B3 focuses on the reauthorization of community action agencies.
So we added this specific reference because those two paragraphs specifically outline what the department can do if they're not satisfied. And we felt like it was important to highlight that in proposed rules so that community action agencies and the network would know how they are going to be evaluated and judged in the future. So that's why that specific reference is there.
So the rules would go, this section would go into effect on passage? No. What?
This section takes effect July 1, 2026.
Okay.
However, there's language in the effective date section that says the department can begin working on rules prior to that, so they could have the rules in effect by July 1.
So they can meet the start time. That's why I asked the question.
Mhm.
Yeah. All right.
Okay, 2209 is the regional planning and needs assessment ongoing language. I don't think there were changes here. Oops, there was. Subsection B. The language says that every 3 years, each community action agency shall submit plans developed pursuant to this section to the department in a format prescribed by the department and to the regional planning committees in the region.
So again,
Yeah.
we thought that this was, the Senate language that we struck had this relating to, the housing targets of the regional planning committees. And, it's not really the department's responsibility or the community action agency's responsibility to develop housing. It's more, we felt important for the regional planning commissions to understand what are the needs for housing in our community. So I think that we agreed with you in terms of the connection to the regional planning, but we felt like the communication should be going from the assessment process into feed into the housing targets developed by the regional planning folks.
Okay.
Okay, so we just reversed the way the information goes.
Okay, 2210 is the ongoing reporting requirements. The Senate version has a report coming to various committees of the General Assembly. This version has the department posting the report on its website. And then this is the contents of the report. Instead, in subdivision 1, I think I said something about type of service, and instead this language uses core service category. So it refers back to what is in statute with regard to core services.
And the reason we changed it to website is because we're just kindly in tune to getting a quarterly report to all of these committees in written form every year. And like, this information should be available to the general public, and that was more likely to be accessible on the department's website.
Well, we had also, I think we'd had a conversation about eliminating some of the quarterly reports from.
They do it monthly right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Subdivision 2 in the Senate version had been collecting information about full-time and part-time employment and SSI and SSDI recipients. Instead, this language has been replaced with addressing cash income and non-cash benefits by source.
What did we take out?
Full-time and part-time employment, SSI, SSDI.
So what we were concentrating on, what is already reported in the, what's it called in the, thank you. The HMIS system
Mhm.
that providers use.
Mhm.
We were concentrating on things that are already reported, so. These are the categories by which.
We're just trying to look at income generally, so.
Yeah,
Okay. Okay.
Subdivision 4 is just an addition, the number of diversions from homelessness made during the previous reporting period. Top of page 21. Subdivision 7, the number of households returning to homelessness after placement in permanent housing. Excuse me. And in subdivision 8, an inventory by amount and purpose of all subgrants issued by the statewide organization serving households, etc. The next change, I have been told that it was confusing to have the first paragraph of this section to appear twice. But all we're doing is recodifying from 2204 to 2211. So these asterisks are here. The language is the same. It's just the codification is changing, and hopefully that's more clear.
I was the person who told her it was confusing.
There had been a section here on the purpose section, amending the purpose section in July 1, 2027 to include HOP, but because this version has HOP as part of VHART from the very beginning, that section has been removed. And that's why we have some renumbering here. So this section 5 is the VHART's implementation planning. This is the two reports coming back from the department, October 1, 2025 and January 15, 2026. Is that right? And so most of this language has been retained and remains the same.
July 26th.
July 26th.
On the bottom.
No, that's when
that's
the
the other-
program takes
The
place.
other folder.
But thank you. So as part of the October report, all of these items on page 22 are part of the October report. And subdivision 3, this language has been cleaned up to match the language in subdivision 5, where we're referencing core services. Before I can't quite remember, I had said services pursuant to this chapter or 3 VSA chapter 22. So that stuck out to me as not being consistent. So I wanted to clean that up.
Technical.
More technical, yes. Here is B, and here is our January 15, 2026 date. So this is the second report from the department next January, and subdivision 7. Changing how this is phrased, I had said whether the intake and assessment process is to include verification for residency, homelessness, and household income. And now it reads appropriate intake and assessment processes for verification of residency, homelessness, and household incomes.
So,
That's good.
so it's taking out the question about whether
Weather,
there would be verification of income, residency,
thank you.
and
for that.
homelessness. It is saying that that will happen.
Good.
It happens now.
It does happen now.
No.
And the NDCF. Got it.
Okay.
We're good.
Section 6 is the interim and final needs assessment plan. So this is coming from the community action agencies and the statewide organization serving households experiencing domestic and sexual violence. There are 2 parts of this plan. First in January and then in April. The change here is to update the cross-reference from section 6 to section 5. And then again, we have language that the April 1st report is not just coming to various committees of the General Assembly, but it's also coming to the regional planning committees in the region. Good. Next is section 7. This is the Community Action Agency chapter, and there haven't been changes made here, so I'm gonna just scroll over it.
That was the fun part to report on the floor.
I will say that I met with Commissioner Winters, not about the easy part, but there just seemed like a huge amount of reporting.
Yes.
In a pretty short period of time. And so I did ask whether there's any way to condense those reporting, or do we need them all? And I was also wondering about the November report, since we put specific language in here, or are proposing specific language that upon mutual agreement elements could be implemented sooner. I did not receive a response back. I did get a memo from the commissioner, but it did not address that question. So I don't know if that's something that you're interested in looking at again.
We'll take a
Okay.
quick look at it. I mean, our committee is really would rather to have the work get done than have it be reported on everybody.
It kind of seems like the way it's set up right now. When we look at the side by side about the reports, seems like a lot of reports. Okay.
Okay, section 8 appropriations. You'll see this number 5.6 is different from the Senate version. It incorporates the 515 for bridges to health, and that has been incorporated here. So this language reads 5.6 to DCF to plan for the implementation of VHARD, which shall be distributed to the community action agencies on a mutually agreed upon schedule as needed, and to bridges to health to address homelessness or risk of homelessness in the workforce. Okay.
I will say, we still have questions about this. I'm just gonna leave it at that for right now. And are trying to work on some solutions.
Okay,
Okay, we have some renumbering because we took out the one item and combined it.
Can I just move back once on,
Oh, please.
section 9? The language, I think it was just, in the way the words came together. I don't think it was a change in intent, but it was less clear that the transition funds were going to community action agencies. It said which may be distributed, and we wanted to be clear that that was those were the entities that were going to receive the transition, funds. So
okay.
that language is slightly different from.
I was still up in the other section, so.
Oh, gotcha.
All right, so you've combined the Bridges to Health along with the regional group. That, and then the 1 million grants will stay for the municipalities. I do have a question about number 4, and it's a question that, we really didn't ponder on or ask effectively in committee. And the administration keeps saying, we need to lower that $10 million. We need to bring it down. It's too much. You've already got so much in the budget already. Well, I think if you're going to have change, you got to invest in the change. So the 10 million has always been an investment for the future. The $3 million is here. The question I have is, do we need it with all the other shelter money that's there and affordable housing money that's there? Do we need it? The leftovers, the bottom line for the 25 expenditures on GA program, they took $4 million, put it into shelters, and there's still $2.8 million there. So I'm thinking, why do we put more in if there's still 2.8 left over and the agency isn't using it for shelters? So this is really a question for the agency to answer. I think someone. Do we need that $3 million there? Can it be taken out and left in the budget?
So I think that's something we certainly can consider. I think one of the things that has, the way the timing went on things this year with the budget having passed
Yes.
prior to this,
Yeah.
the budget's been signed. The parties all agreed to it. The governor did not bring it up during budget negotiations in terms of the $10 million in one-time funds that's allocated there. My only concern would be that just leaves it up to the administration what to do with that $3 million with no direction from us. And I think that, it's the legislature's responsibility to direct the use of funding. So while I think that I agree with you about the sort of overall, can we reduce it? Yes, but then what happens? It's still there. It's been approved by the legislature. It's appropriated to the Department for Children and Families. I should double check that. Is that specific in the DCF, Nolan?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, theoretically, it leaves it open and it still reduces it from here, but with still.
Actually, no, it just drops to the bottom line. It's not appropriate anywhere.
That's my question.
It just sits and floats in the budget.
Yeah,
Somebody can pick it up. So,
yeah.
so
We will take that under advisement.
please, I think the point that you've made about it's been in the budget the whole time. We were given the money in the bill and we've appropriated it to a place where we think can do some good. But at the same time, I keep hearing from the administration in different ways that $10 million is too high. Oh, I don't know how we can do it any differently. Any suggestions? I could use it in 126, actually. Anyway.
I don't think you want me to start to go down. I'm pretty sure.
All right, well, I won't suggest that.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. So
Okay.
we should go on.
Okay.
Okay, there's a new section, the Senate version also had a transition section, but that was about a transition for HOP,
Yeah.
which is not here anymore because the timeline has been pulled together. So instead, what we have is language between July 1, 2025 and July 1, 2026, pursuant to a mutual agreement between the department and a community action agency, or the statewide organization serving households experiencing domestic or sexual violence. Specific elements of VHART may take effect prior to July 1, 2026, subject to 30-day notice to affected households, 30-day notice to JFC and the policy committees, and posted notice on the department's website.
So I think it's important for me to identify what we took out here as well. Under, oh, wait a minute, that's the next section. Oh, no, well, it would have appeared here. Future appropriations, legislative intent, we had inserted, in fiscal year 27 and thereafter funds and resources equivalent to
Yeah.
FY 25 or 6, I don't remember what it said. And then you took out a date and wrote previously appropriated, and we have taken that section out completely.
Do you want to say anything about it?
No.
So how are we gonna fund this?
That, well, through budget negotiations every year, like we have a budget every year. The reason, yeah, well, it's just putting it in statute. The reason, again, I am looking at creating a program that makes sense, and a program that we can get the governor to sign, or at least pass into law, or at least allow to pass into law. So think about that.
Well, okay, let me just say one thing about it. I think the concern was, my understanding of the concern, and the administration could correct me if I'm wrong, the concern was that we were dedicating $36 million every single year going forward. I think the intent was that we were substituting an ongoing program for what is a negotiated every year GA and adverse weather. We were taking that, instead of making it something that was pliable every year, we were going to make it a program with some predictability in terms of appropriations. So that was why there was some language in there. So it possibly could be worded better, but saying that this would be an ongoing program, and funding would be, intentional funding currently being used or appropriated through
Yeah.
GA.
I mean, I think that what I understand the administration's objection to is part of what you just said. They don't want to commit to a specific level of funding on an ongoing basis. I get that.
Yeah.
It's part of the budget process that happens every year.
Yeah.
So, by creating the program, and if there's some language that we can say that,
It's a program.
It's a program.
not an every year, this is how much we're still gonna say how much we need. There's no question about it.
right.
But it's a program, it's ongoing, always gonna have shelters.
So let's see if we can come up with language that indicates that this is permanent in nature. And I mean, obviously it's subject to annual budget negotiations. Right. That's what happens.
And the other good thing about saying it this way, right now, our HOPs and our TAPs are very much dependent on federal dollars.
Everybody is. Yeah.
And there's a little void coming.
Yeah.
So,
It may not be so little.
Yeah. Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah. I don't think it will be.
So this is why, we want to have some assurances that the state is accepting responsibility here for this kind of program. That's all.
I just didn't, I think that it would be on further reflection, a mistake to try to pigeonhole a certain level of funding.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree.
Subject to, it's gonna be subject to budget negotiations and
Yeah.
making the case and the needs assessments that we
Yeah.
require here. So
Based
I
on
think
the
we can
data
come up with
received,
something
right?
that'll
Yeah.
do both. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, all right, so
You got that idea, Edie? Sort of.
We'll think about it.
We'll see.
I'll
Okay.
think about it.
And then section 10 of the effective dates, with some changes here, paragraphs 1 and 2 used to be combined. But now this section 4, which is when VHART takes effect July 1, 2026, has added language. However, specific elements of VHART may be implemented prior to that date pursuant to section 9. And then this is now standalone. And that's it.
That's good. I woke up from a dream thinking about that. I
I
know.
need to get you better sleep aids, I think.
Oh, well. Nobody thinks we take these things seriously.
How would you like to proceed, Madam Chair?
Well, I think that our little group would like to get together. Maybe
Yeah.
we can sit down with Katie. I don't know what time it is. I have another commitment at 1, but if I could meet briefly right now, you guys, we could just meet here, kick everybody out, meet briefly with Katie and then, see what we can do.
Do you,
What time can you meet?
I'm just looking for a schedule. Yeah, we're supposed to be back on the floor at 2.
We're on, what time are we at? We're on
But
3.
in committee at 1:30 till.
Yeah, we have another meeting at
Yeah.
1. So, okay, so you're on, we're
I don't
on,
think floor is going to be long. It's in case you guys are doing anything.
And then we have again at 4:30.
And then we have again at 4:30.
okay,
yeah.
so you're on it. You're on at
2 and 4:30.
4:30.
So, but honestly, this is important. So, you know,
What do you think? Do you think 2:30 would do anything for you? Is that,
all right.
or do you do know what you're?
We can do 2. We could probably do 2:30. Yeah.
Okay, and if it's too long, then we could try 3:30. So we'll either say 2:30 or 3:30. Now my 1 o'clock person is gonna say. Okay, we can sort that out. So just,
I don't know, probably not in committee at 2:30.
okay,
I know. Maybe we should
So I
say
think
3 o'clock. Why don't we split the difference?
because we're on the
We're on the
floor.
floor.
Oh, you're on the floor at 3.
So we
Oh,
can
I
do
didn't realize that.
3:30.
Okay.
Let's do 3:30.
3:30? Okay. Does that work for you, Lori? Okay.
Don't go away, Lori. We need you.
Okay,
Okay, so we'll do that.
sounds good.
And the other one is, we didn't have a, full discussion on the Bridges to Health. We are very committed to that. So I noticed you have it in there and so we can talk about that. Yeah, I know that you said you might bring something else back, but just so you know.
Well, I sent you a text earlier,
I know
so,
you did.
all right, okay.
That's what talk.
You don't think that works? The today text, not yesterday's text.
Oh, I'll look.
No, there's a today text that I think is a good idea.
All right.
Just saying.
Let's adjourn to this moment, offline and.